Welcome to episode 45 of From the Shed End podcast. Myself, T Dot, Theo. Happy returns. Feels like it's been a while since you've been on. But how you doing? How was your
Better.
Christmas?
Yeah, it was. It's been a while. It's been, I think, over 2 weeks now, and I've missed it. If I'm honest, it's always nice to talk about Chelsea, particularly after we've just won. But Christmas was good. It was busy. Back with the family after a self-isolation period, a little COVID hiccup. But I'm good. How was your Christmas?
Good. Busy. Like I said before, Boxing Day's my day, and Christmas Day's all about being in the kitchen, drinking brandy, and cooking turkeys. But yeah, it was good. It's good. Good little break. But yeah, it's good. Even more better because we managed to get a victory against Aston Villa yesterday after some sort of inconsistent performances over the last couple of weeks. It was good to see a really good performance. But before we get into the game, anyone who is listening, don't forget you can hit the subscribe button. Make sure that you follow the accounts as well. They're down at the bottom of the screen. So From the Shed End on Twitter and From the Shed End with underscores between each of the words on Instagram as well. I think we've still got our competition running as well. I think that's a couple of days' time. We'll be able to reveal the winner.
Yeah, I've got I think a couple more days where it's still running. I think we'll close the entries on the 31st of December and be announced the winner in the new year or on the final day of the year. But if you're still wanting to enter that, we've got a match day program from the Chelsea Juventus game up for grabs. All you have to do is find the post on Instagram, give it a like, give us a follow on Instagram, and tag 2 friends in the comments. A lot of people liking the post but not tagging their friends. So make sure you tag those 2 friends if you want to be in a chance of being entered into the draw.
Yeah, it's definitely important to do that. Definitely. And yeah, we're definitely going to do the draw live as well. We'll try and do it somehow so that everyone can see who's won and make sure it's all done fairly as well. But let's get into the game from yesterday. Very good performance second half, in my opinion. I wasn't too happy about the first half, but let's talk about the lineup. Wasn't really many surprises for you in terms of who started in the game, but just give us your thoughts, the initial thoughts on the game and the first half as well.
I thought lineup made sense given that Tuchel was advised by his medical team not to play Lukaku. I think even the 45 minutes that he played was more than the medical advice. He was advised to play him for sure a short amount of time. So the lineup did make sense. I was frustrated to see Pulisic as a false 9 because that didn't work against Everton. It didn't work against Wolves. It didn't work in that first half against Villa, let's face it. I did think he had a much better second half when he was switched to a right wing back, which is quite surprising because he's not the best defensive footballer, but I thought he did a quite good job and linked up well with Kante and Mount in that second half in that position. But first half, very, very cagey. I thought Villa were probably the better team in that first half, even though they didn't really have maybe a shot on target. I think Silva and Chaloba and the defenders allowed, I think, Watkins and Ings a few times to get behind them. And then they recovered well. Credit to them. They did recover well and made some good blocks. But I thought Villa looked like the more threatening team in that first half. Their goal came from a bit of a fluke. I thought, Reece James, I thought was poor in that first half. His delivery was very poor, which is very unorthodox of him. And then the own goal was unfortunate. Yeah, you can maybe point the finger to Mendy and think, could he be doing better with that? It goes right between his hands. But as a goalkeeper, it's so hard to, adjust your body and your hands when it takes unexpected deflection of one of your own players. But, that first half, there were moments I thought Hudson-Odoi and Alonso linked up quite well in that first half. And what I do like with having Alonso at left wing back and Reece James at right wing back is Reece James on a good day. Yesterday was a bit of an exception because he was quite poor. But on a good day, he's able to put in a really good cross ball, with height on it. Whereas Alonso is often, like we saw that goal that came, Mount's goal against Leeds, he's able to fizz it across the box quite low and put it in those dangerous areas. So it's good to have those 2 options from the wing backs. But then the goal, I thought Hudson-Odoi was brilliant. He won us that penalty really well. He got in, ahead of Matty Cash without him knowing. Matty Cash thought he was going for the ball, but Hudson-Odoi nipped in front of him and he won us the penalty. And then Jorginho did what he had to do for from the penalty spot. So it was good. It calmed the nerves at halftime to go in at the break with 1-1. But then the second half, we'll talk about that in a bit. But I think the substitution made a difference.
Oh, yeah, I agree 100%. I think we did look very sort of sluggish first half. I think we made it very, tight, like you just mentioned. Konza and Tyrone Mings didn't really have anything to deal with in the first half, and that's potentially down to Pulisic being that false number 9. Doesn't really work. Like you said, it didn't really work against Everton as well, but it was I think the goal, obviously the goal, penalty, and then the goal from Jorginho definitely helped. When we went 1-0 down, I did kind of think it's going to be one of those days, isn't it?
Here we go again. Here we go
Yeah,
again.
yeah. So, and you're right, spot on with Reece James. I think, he didn't have the best performances, and some players do have, well, every player has off days. There's days where you just can't, you can't perform at a 9 out of 10 every game. But I just thought going into into that game, yeah, you kind of need Reece James to be on form. We can't really afford for someone like him not to be on job. So it was disappointing first half. I don't think any Chelsea fans can say that. And like you just mentioned, the substitution at half time, Big Rom back. He was a bully. I think he would have ran through the fans if he could to get a goal. He was just that good. Give me your thoughts on Lukaku coming back into the team. Like you mentioned as well, there was medical advice given to Tuchel not to play him as well. So just give me your thoughts on Lukaku.
I mean, that game was just screaming for a number 9. And when Lukaku came on for that second half, he delivered the ultimate number 9 performance. I felt he bullied defenders off the ball. He made some brilliant runs. He showed that he's got pace in his locker as well. That headed goal that he scored from a brilliant Hudson-Odoi delivery is something that we haven't seen in a very long time. A headed goal from one of our number 9s. So that was really good to see. And a few times he played with his back to goal and passed it to Kovacic, passed it to Mount. So it was basically the Lukaku that we were seeing back in August, September, the one that played at the Emirates, the one that played against Villa in the reverse leg and scored a brace. So it was brilliant to see. And it's really important as well that he's putting in that performance, because that will give him a lot of confidence now for, the quite tricky run of fixtures that we're going to have now in January. So, during that little blip, I want to call it, start December, end of November, when we weren't getting those results, we were getting those kind of sluggish draws, against Everton, against Burnley, against United. Those games were screaming for a number 9 most of the time. When we were playing with Werner at times as a false 9, when we were playing with Pulisic as a false 9, it just wasn't doing it. It wasn't doing it. And there was that period before his injury where Lukaku was getting criticised for his movement off the ball. But I thought yesterday his movement off the ball was fantastic. He was making runs behind the defenders. A lot of the times he didn't actually end up having the ball, to his feet, but he was making those runs that, you want to see your number 9 making. Runs that Benzema would be making, a Lewandowski would be making, and, the Romelu Lukaku that was at Inter Milan last season and scoring for fun was making. So and then what I love the most is after the match when he said, we are hunters now, something along those lines. That's what I want to hear, we're hunting down City now. We're hunting down City. So I want to hear that. Yeah, but it was brilliant. And obviously the goal as well. Mings is a big boy, and Lukaku just made him look like a Sunday League defender there. So it was good to see.
I think it was interesting as well because even for the penalty that we get from the run that Lukaku makes as well, I think it's Target who tries to bring him down first, and I think it's Konza who eventually fouls him in the box. But just the speed, the strength, the agility to be able to play the way he did, I was impressed. It's those kind of performances why you understand, why we've paid so much money for him, what he's capable of doing. He was just a nightmare. He's a defender's nightmare, and I think I've said it on here before. That those kind of performances is where you look and you see, you see a Tyrone Mings who just can't handle him, or Konza who can't handle him, and he was just 10 out of 10 if we're being honest. I think you hit the nail on the head as well in terms of the fixture congestion that we've got coming up, just like we've had already in December. But looking at January, I think it's probably just as bad in some ways as December has been as well. So yeah, I think we're going to need someone like Lukaku. I think some games, yes, rest him, play someone like Werner in that position, that number 9. But I think if we've got a number 9, we've got to start playing him. And we've got to start utilising him the best way we can. And I feel like Thomas Tuchel did that yesterday. I think he got the best out of him. We know we can be a problem for defenders. I think it's just sometimes for him, yes, he does like the ball to feet, but he showed that he can be versatile, and he done that yesterday. So for me, definitely, man of the match performance, in my opinion. But injuries, again, has been another thing that we always have to talk about in this podcast recently. It seems that there's always going to be an injury crisis at Chelsea. I can't remember, I think you said this to me yesterday, but I can't remember the last time we had so many injuries in one season. It seems like it's every game something happens, or it's COVID. We don't get our game postponed, but we still have to play the game. It just seems like a season of played with injuries. What do you think it's down to? Just the congestion of the fixtures, or is it just a case we're just unlucky, we're unfortunate?
I think it's the congestion of the fixtures, players who are injured being forced back early and then making those injuries worse, which is what we're seeing with Kante. It's that same knee problem that keeps recurring. And he was rushed back for that Wolves game because we needed a midfielder so desperately for that game. And he probably could have done with another week of rest or recovery. And probably it's the same with Chalobah. I think he came off at halftime. I'm not sure if it was injury, if it was just, we wanted to bring on a more offensive player. But, he as well, he's been in and out of the team with injuries and he's kind of been rushed back into the team. Silva as well, he's 37 and he's been playing a lot of football. He is probably our most important defender, but, he hasn't been able to catch a break recently because of, how many fixtures we have and the lack of players we've had to fill in. Christensen's been out with COVID. Chalobah's been injured at times, so he's been forced to play. But that's a hamstring injury. I'm hoping he's back, in maybe a couple of weeks' time. But I don't expect any of them to be fit for the Brighton game, Liverpool game, maybe even the first leg of the Spurs semi-final. But it's annoying because every time we seem to make progress, get the results, we just seem to get some bad injury, like when we beat Juventus 4-0. We were forced, Chilwell's ACL went, so it's really frustrating. It just seems to be the story of our season at the moment.
It's going to be interesting because you just mentioned obviously Brighton, who played yesterday as well, played really well. So it's a game that we'll talk about shortly. But that Liverpool game is key. I think it's on the 2nd of January. So yeah, I think that's going to be a massive game. And if we don't have someone, for me personally, that is a game where I'd love to see Thiago Silva in there. I doubt we're going to see that now, but just in terms of Christensen, who hasn't played as much football over the last couple of weeks, down to COVID, but also I think maybe down to some off-field issues as well. But he's going to have to step up now. I think him, Chalobah, Rudiger, we're going to need them because obviously African Cup of Nations, I think the players leave on the 3rd, so we'll still have Mendy, but it will mean that Liverpool will still have Mane, Salah. So it's going to be critical to make sure we can get through that Brighton game. No more injuries. Like you've just mentioned there, I think, Kante, again, it's the same reoccurring injury. So he just needs, I think for Kante, he needs a period of, as much as we need him to be fully fit. Rushing him back for me isn't the answer because in the long run, it's just, we need him to be fully fit rather than have a 50% Kante who's playing half a game or missing 3 games but playing 1. It's pointless. We may as well get him back to full fitness. Thiago Silva, I expect him to pick up these kind of injuries at the age that he is, the amount of games like you just mentioned that he's played as well. It's unfortunate because he as strange as it sounds, he's probably been our best player this season. And you think about you think about some of the, even going back to the Juventus game, I think the goal line clearances, I think there was like back to back in 2 different games. He cleared it off the line in like, dramatic fashion, but he's probably been arguably our best, a free player as well, free transfer that's come in. But this season, he's probably been the best player for me. And him and Mason Mount, definitely been key players. But to lose Thiago Silva at this period, for me, is more damaging than losing Kante in some ways. As much as we, Kovacic coming back in, it's been a blessing. We needed someone to come in. The midfield was very weak. I can't remember what game it was. It was Everton. I think it was the Everton game. And, I think, is that when we played Chalobah in midfield, I think?
I think it might have been. Or was it at Wolves? I can't remember. Yeah.
They all sort of, at this period of the year, they just blend into one game.
That 2-week COVID period for me is a blur. I just watched that Everton game 4 times. I just switched it off, went to bed. So I don't really remember much now.
I don't think we recorded that week either.
No.
But just in terms of obviously having Kovacic back, I think we can kind of compensate for not having Kante in that midfield. But to lose Silva, who seems to be the glue at the back, that back 3, for me, it's a big loss. It's a massive loss. So it's going to be difficult to go up against Liverpool, who are Liverpool. We know what they can do, and not have Thiago Silva in that team.
And they've had a longer break as well now with their game postponed. Didn't get to play Leeds. But just for Kante, I think it's something we have to get used to as Chelsea fans. You're going to have a 4 season. We've got maybe another 5-6 months of football. Realistically, Kante is going to be fit for maybe 2 or 3 of those months of football. We have to expect now that Kante is not going to play, a lot of football in the next 5 months if that knee injury just keeps persisting. And with Silva, it's like you said, he's the glue in the back. And just the way he reads the game, he senses danger. Even in that first half when Villa were attacking and looking threatening, Silva was just so cool on the ball. He would reassure probably Chaloba was playing alongside him that you just calm it down. Don't panic. Make sure you don't do anything rash or stupid, and just pass the ball out and make sure you find Kante or Jorginho. And I think lacking that experience is going to be a bit of a blow. But we have to trust Christensen, Chaloba, or even I think Malang Sarr, who had a good game at Brentford. I think may play a part in the League Cup and the FA Cup against Chesterfield. So I think we have to look at the other options that we have and just hope that Silva recovers come maybe mid-January time.
Yeah. So it's going to be a big loss, to be honest. But all is not bad. I think I'm looking at the league table now. We're third. We're level on points with Liverpool, albeit they've got a game in hand. But we've still only conceded 13 goals. We've scored 42 this season as well. It's not all doom and gloom. And I think you can kind of go on Twitter sometimes, or you'll go on social media, and you think we're in the relegation, bottom three or something, because it's just. I went on this morning and briefly, and yeah, even after the game, we've just beat Aston Villa 3-1, and there's still that sort of doom and gloom on there. So it's not all bad. A question I'll ask you, because I've asked, I think, a few other Chelsea fans, but are we still in the race for the title, or have we now got to change the expectations to top four?
No, mathematically we're still in the race, 100%. But it's just how good City are looking, which is scary. But I think, like I said at the start of the season, once with a full fit Chelsea squad, with the depth we have, if we keep Lukaku fit, if we keep Silva, Kante fit once they come back from their injuries, if we have Kovacic, Jorginho and Kante as our free midfield options for those really big, important games, then we've got every chance, to be challenging City and Liverpool for that top spot. But given the COVID situation that we had recently, and I expect that to carry on, in January, more COVID cases, more maybe games, being postponed for other teams, maybe unfavorable for us because they get a longer break, etc. Then, the circumstances will be tough for us. But mathematically, we're still in it. And I think there's no better manager that I'd want, to manage this team in this situation than Thomas Tuchel. I think I mentioned it a few episodes back. I almost quite like being in that second, third spot, and like Lukaku said, hunting down, that third spot, putting that pressure rather than being top and having that pressure behind you. So yeah, I think we're still in it. It's going to be harder than I thought come August, because City and Liverpool look good. But I just hope that maybe, when they lack Mane and Mahrez and Salah, there's 3 important players with those 2 clubs, then maybe they'll drop a couple points and we can maybe overtake them. But it's going to be tough, very tough. But I think if we manage to get top 3, it's going to be very, very respectable. I want to put it like that.
Yeah. And I think you're right. I think there's going to be a moment where Liverpool, who very rarely have blips in a season, when they're playing in the form that they are at the moment. So any points if we can go there in the second and or they come to us, but you know what I mean? If we can get a result against them, then definitely need to get the 3 points there as well. But yeah, I think we're still in it. Obviously, we've got Tottenham, who are looking very good as well. Arsenal 4th. Don't really mind Arsenal, but you look at Tottenham, they've got those 3 games. I think they've got 3 games in hand. They're on 29 points. So yes, it doesn't sound like a lot. We're on 41, but if they win those 3 games, then you've got to start thinking behind us as well. So I'm still in a league title bracket at the moment. I still think we can do it. I think we have the squad to do it, bar not many more injuries, or the COVID thing doesn't hit us. I do want to ask you this question, because I think, again, I know we spoke about this offline, but it does seem very odd that Chelsea games are going ahead. We're playing teams that are riddled with COVID, not just in our own camp, but I think Villa had a massive outbreak of COVID not long ago as well. But then you do look at some of the other games. I think Man United's game prior to Christmas was postponed. Liverpool's Boxing Day game was postponed yesterday as well. I'm pretty sure Man City might have had a game postponed at some point, but I might not be 100% on that one. But it does seem that Chelsea games aren't being postponed, and we had 7 against Wolves that were potentially out. It just seems like we're constantly playing games, even though there's COVID.
Campaign against Chelsea, that's why. like Jose Mourinho once said,
the agenda.
The agenda. No, but it is how that the Wolves Chelsea game went ahead. where we had 7 cases of COVID. We could only have 4 outfield players, I think, on the bench. Was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. And how actually Thomas Tuchel, he kept his cool, when he was interviewed, asked about it. But he said, we submitted our appeal to have that game postponed. It was rejected. It is what it is. But you could tell he was frustrated. He cares about his players' well-being. And I think definitely with a fully fit squad, we could have won that game, given how we played in that second half as well. So that makes it even more frustrating. But then obviously Liverpool being Liverpool, they'll get their games postponed. They're the media darlings, so we know what to expect with them. And I just think, it's kind of unfair, I feel. Especially I was thinking about this as well the other day. It's nothing to do with kind of games getting postponed, but Reece James and Alonso yesterday were 1 yellow card away from a suspension, before the new year. And I'm still not sure if, all these games that are getting postponed, do those suspensions apply to those games in the new year when they do get played, because I think it's the 19 game. Once you play 19 games, they reset.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating. It's little things like that, I think, that, have gone against us. And obviously Tottenham have had 3 games postponed. Brentford, who we played in the League Cup, had 7 cases of COVID as well. They appealed. They got their game postponed. And when they played us, they had a fully fit squad. They had I think they only had 1 small injury, but no COVID cases. And we were forced to play Wolves with 7 COVID cases, 4 outfielders, players on the bench, 2 goalkeepers on the bench. It was not fair, So I could go on about this forever, but it's just going to be me sounding like a broken record. So I'll just leave it at that.
But you're spot on. No, you're spot on. I think, it's a strange one because I think there's no consistency at all across the Premier League. You look at, some games are being postponed, and then the following week, the team that had their game postponed is then playing a team. I don't understand the criteria to get a game postponed. I don't understand I think it needs to be a bit more transparent for fans, I think, as well. And I think that there's some decisions to be made like 2 hours before kickoff is ridiculous. I think
Palace Tottenham yesterday, they announced it on Twitter a couple of hours before kickoff. It sounded like a Sunday league game. We weren't sure if you're going to play with a waterlogged pitch or something like that. It's
not
ridiculous.
Good enough. It's not good enough. And I think there needs to be a lot more transparency, a lot more consistency in terms of those games. In all honesty, if there is COVID cases within a team, just don't play the games, or just void that whole fixture, that whole day of games, and then it just allows. Because what's happening now, Spurs have got 3 games to play. When do they play them? It doesn't seem right. They don't
have European football. They don't have European football, so they can squeeze in a game on a Thursday.
Appeal. They want to try and appeal, don't they? So it's embarrassing. Just let it go. You haven't.
I was in favour of that 2-week pause for the Premier League. It made complete sense for me, for the players, for the fans. So even for the fans going to games, I was watching Match of the Day yesterday. A lot of empty stadiums.
Yeah,
West Ham, Brighton. I mean, Etihad is the Etihad, but it was not full.
Empty-had.
Etihad. But West Ham, I was surprised. A lot of empty seats there, and they're usually, they're quite a full, full.
Even at Villa, I think Villa Park was in full house, and that. I mean, they're quite good. They normally have quite a good fan base, but I think it is down to that. I think, and I mean, Boxing Day is a nightmare for people who don't drive. If they've got to try and get public transport somewhere, it's a nightmare because there's no trains anywhere. But normally there's a will, there's a way, and I think I noticed it more in the Brighton game yesterday that there was hardly anyone there. But I think Amex is in the middle of nowhere. I'm sure it's almost by the motorway, so it's a nightmare to get to anyway. But I agree with you. I think there needs to be a lot more consistency. We need to be given a lot more clarity around why our games are going ahead, why Liverpool games are being cancelled, why Spurs didn't play for 2 weeks. It just doesn't seem right to me. But one of the things that Thomas Tuchel did say after the game yesterday was around the need for 5 subs, which I think if anyone's watched sort of Match of the Day, they'll see that Alan Shearer was sort of attacked Tuchel slightly a little bit. He almost said, well, it's got to be voted in, and the clubs need to, a unanimous vote needs to be done by the clubs. But do you think there should be 5 subs? Because we did have that previous, the previous lockdowns and COVID and the restart of the season. We had that 5 subs implemented. Do you think that's what we need this season because of these, these issues with COVID?
I'm quite 50-50 about it. I want to play devil's advocate because as a Chelsea fan, we've got so much depth, and it would be a blessing to, have 5 subs come on. And, all these games that are getting postponed, they're going to have to be played at some point, 2 days after another fixture, which means that you need to really use your full squads. So it does make sense to introduce the five substitutions. But at the same time, I can understand, if there was a vote in, I can maybe imagine 12 or 13 of the Premier League teams from the 20 of them voting against it, because they don't have that, that squad. It's not favourable for the smaller teams like the Burnleys, the Watfords, who don't have the privilege of bringing on a Timo Werner or Kai Havertz off the bench. So it's quite 50-50. But then again, if Watford Norwich, was it Watford Norwich, or I forgot which fixture got postponed a few days ago, then that's the type of game, that will be played maybe midway through February after they've just played another fixture, like I said, and being able to, maybe bring on a player who's fresh and also take off a player who maybe is risking an injury, then it makes complete sense. And we saw it in that lockdown period a year or two ago. And arguably this period is probably going to be more stressful, more congested. So it makes sense to reintroduce that rule. So I'm kind of in favour for it.
I think it's needed. I think not just because of COVID, but we've spoke about it already. You're seeing players picking up a lot more injuries because of the fixtures being congested and, back-to-back fixtures. I think we do need to. I agree. I think, from a Chelsea perspective, it definitely gives us the advantage against a Watford or a Norwich or someone who's got a smaller squad. But if you're talking about players, and again, this kind of ties into, that whole thing on Twitter about players needing a break and, playing too much football. But if you implement 5 subs, you've got the opportunity to rest a Kante, but play someone else or bring him off, or, you've got the luxury to do that. And we are fortunate. We've obviously got a good squad in terms of depth to be able to do that. But I don't think it's any different to Man City or Chelsea spending 100 million on a player, in my opinion. I don't think it's not, Norwich aren't spending 100 million on Jack Grealish and they're not spending 100 million on a Romelu Lukaku. So I don't think that the playing field's level anyway in that respect. I think, some clubs are spending a lot more than other clubs. Financial fair play goes out the window when you think about it in terms of how that works at the moment. It's not really, I think it needs reviewing, to be honest, but I don't think it would hurt to have 5 subs. I think it would reduce injuries. We've got to factor in COVID. I just think it makes more sense to have 5. I don't know why we wouldn't have 5 subs. And I think the other European, I might need to double check this, but I'm sure, Italy, Spain, I'm sure they still have the 5 sub ruling in anyway.
And the winter break.
And the winter break. So, we're the only league that doesn't have that, doesn't have a winter break and doesn't have 5 subs. So in my opinion, I think we do need it. I think it would, we've seen players holding their chest and collapsing on pitches. It's taking its toll on these players. So I think it's definitely needed, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Just to protect the well-being of the players, and going into the next couple of months, there's going to be more cases of COVID, more injuries. Maybe having 5 subs, we could have avoided that Kante and Silva injury yesterday. And also, we were forced into a defensive change. We're bringing off when Silva came off. So, and that makes us, lack maybe bringing on an attacking player, the likes of maybe a Barkley or a Ziyech, that we maybe would have wanted to do in that second half. So yeah, it is frustrating, but I just can't see, the Premier League uniting and, agreeing on that rule, like I said, because it's more favourable for the bigger teams. But when you say about financial fair play going out the window, then it's a bit like, if you can spend 100 million on a player, why can't we have 5 subs? So, yeah.
Let's talk about who I've mentioned already, Brighton, who played really well against Brentford yesterday as well. We've got them next on the 29th of December. They're 9th in the league. They look like they're kind of dancing around with sort of Europa Conference or Europa League places at the moment. So what's your thoughts going into that game off the back of how we played against Aston Villa, factoring in the injuries to Thiago Silva and N'Golo Kante? But what's your thoughts on going into that game? I think you're going to the game as well, I think, aren't you? Yeah. So
I'll probably be wearing a mask in Stamford Bridge, but I'll be there. It's going to be a tricky one. I think Brighton, like you said, they're playing some very good football at the moment. They've got a very young, exciting manager in Graham Potter, who's really kind of got the best out of this Brighton squad. Smart recruitment policy as well, bringing in the likes of Lamptey, Cucurella. I think their left or right backs looking quite good. Trossard and Maupay, we saw their goals yesterday, fantastic. So it's going to be a tricky game, but from a Chelsea, I have to talk about Chelsea here. If we want to establish that level of consistency and really, make that title charge that we should be going for, then it's the games we should be winning, especially at home. To finish the year, we played some very good football away at Aston Villa yesterday, especially in that second half. And if we want to just carry on with that flow, get that consistency, we should be beating Brighton at home. I think if ROM starts, then we've got every chance to be winning it. I think he's playing with confidence. He's looking hungry. He should be getting a goal or two in that. But then I just will not be surprised if it's the same Chelsea we saw, against Everton or even against Wolves, where we just get that sloppy, sluggish draw. Maybe we score early and then let them back into the game and then just miss chances. We just need to be more clinical. Even, we didn't speak about it, but that Mount and Hudson-Odoi chance yesterday.
Yeah,
those are chances that, a City are scoring, a Liverpool are scoring, and we're still kind of bottling them, So we just need to be more clinical in front of goal. And if we take our chances, because I think we will create chances. Hudson-Odoi is looking really, smart with the way he's playing his football. Lukaku's there in the box. He's looking for the ball. He wants the ball at his feet. Then we should be creating chances. We just need to be more clinical. And if we're clinical, we'll win it. But I'm just not seeing this Chelsea side being clinical enough at the moment.
I think we should win. In fact, no, we will win. But I agree with you as well, 100%. I think, watching Brighton yesterday, and albeit I think that was their first win since September or maybe October. So they've drew a lot of games. I think they've lost like 3, but they've drew quite a large amount of games. So one thing with Brighton is they don't take their chances as well. And albeit yesterday they did, so let's not talk about yesterday. But just in terms of the games before that, they can create 10 chances and maybe take one of them. And as long as we go into that game off the back of the Aston Villa game, I think Lukaku has to start. I don't think he can be on the bench. I think he has to be in that number 9 position and has to do what we know he can do. He has to make it difficult for the centre backs. I agree with you. We didn't really mention him, but Hudson-Odoi had a brilliant game against Villa, and I can see him keeping his place as well. Obviously, Mason Mount, I said as well, he's been one of our best players this season. So, yeah, I think we've got everything in the locker to go out there and get a brilliant performance. And we're at Stamford Bridge, so I don't necessarily think that we will find this game difficult. The only worry for me at the moment is, again, the congestion of the fixtures that we've had over the last couple of weeks. Again, injuries to Kante, that's going to be a loss. But I do think not having Thiago Silva in that sort of back three is going to be very obvious. We're going to see that, whether that's Chalobah or Malangsar that plays in that position as well, Christensen as well. But it's going to be a massive loss not to have him there. So we've got to go into that. Obviously, we've got Liverpool after, so this is the kind of game that we have to perform on. We can't afford to drop points at this point in the season now. It's too, like I said before, it's too risky. We've got Spurs and Arsenal behind us in the league, so if we drop points, it just gives them an open invitation to, to start closing that gap on us as well. But I'm confident. I'm confident. I look at Mendy. Yes, he's had a bit of an inconsistent period over the last couple of games as well. His distribution hasn't been the best, but Reece James has got to put in a better performance as well. He's got to step it up as well. I'm confident. I'm really confident. Like I said, Brighton haven't had the best. I don't think they've got a really good record at Stamford Bridge either. Anyway, no. I think we've. I
don't think they've ever even beaten us ever.
Yeah, I think we've. Yeah, I think they've beaten us. I think we've won 6.
I think a couple of draws in the last season. I think that 0-0 last season, which was a weird game because before we were entering the Super League at the time.
Yeah, that was it.
It don't really make sense playing that game, but yeah. Other than that, we've got quite a good record against Brighton, home and away. So, like you said, I think we should be winning this game. We should be confident as well, backing up that Villa performance. So, I'm going to be optimistic and say we'll win and keep a clean sheet.
Let's go for predictions.
2-0 Chelsea, clean sheet.
2-0.
Lukaku and a Jorginho penalty.
Another one. He's got to be top scorer soon. I think he must be nearly. He's got to be top scorer now, hasn't he?
I think he is our top goal scorer, and I think he's got 10 penalties in the calendar year this season. And every time I thought he's going to miss it yesterday. I literally thought, I thought Martinez is a good penalty shot stopper.
Yeah.
But every time he just makes me eat my words, and he scores it. So
The second one was a lot closer. I think Martinez was very close to saving that one. I think so, or might have been the first one. I can't remember. I was slightly drunk watching the game, so I can't even remember it. I had to rewatch it this morning. But yeah, no, it's. I'm gonna say 3-0. I think we should be able to deal with Brighton. As I've said, that they create chances, they just don't score enough goals. I think defensively, I love that their wing backs. I think they're brilliant. They love to get forward as well, but that does leave a lot of space then behind. We'll be able to run into. So I think we've Hudson-Odoi, if he's on the form that he was yesterday, 100% we should be beating them. Lukaku, I'm going to say Lukaku two goals, and I'm going to say Mason Mount.
should have scored yesterday. He should have
He
scored.
should have scored. He should have. And Hudson-Odoi as well. He
Both
had
of
a
them,
really
yeah.
good chance. So
Yeah.
he's got to make up for it somewhere. And hopefully it's against Brighton. So and I'm sure you'll enjoy the game anyway. You'll be there.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
Yeah, be a good game. Return back to the bridge. But yeah, so 3-0. One of us hopefully is right. Fingers crossed. I can't remember the time of the game. I think it's
7:30.
7:30 game. So it's a bit of a weird one. But yeah, weird time to kick off. Very weird time. For anyone who's listening as well, as I said earlier on, do not forget to subscribe to the channel and make sure that you do follow us on Twitter at From the Shed End and Instagram at From the Shed End with underscores between each of the words. And on Spotify and Apple, we're on there as well. So make sure you give us a search. Make sure you click the subscribe button on there so you know when the episode is out and you can listen as well. But yeah, this has been episode 45. Theo, as always, thank you very much for joining me, and we'll be back next week for another one. Thanks for listening.